let's talk about cats. There's a lot of controversy about cats. People love them, people hate them. Some people think that cats own the humans, while other humans think that they own their cats. And there's just a lot of stories and a lot of controversies about being a cat owner. And so that's what today's video is going to be about with Know Before You Go, is going to be everything you need to know before you become a cat owner or a cat parent or a cat sitter. What's up everybody, and welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name is Derek, and if you haven't guessed it, today's video is going to be knowing everything you need to know before you become a cat owner. So if you've watched a small handful of my videos before, you may have seen my cat Emmey walking around in the background. Sometimes she's behind my chair or she's in the background meowing. And so cats can be one of the most frustrating animals to have as a pet. But then also on the flip side, cats can also be one of the best pet companions that you could have ever guessed. And so a lot of people think, oh, cats, they're not affectionate, they're not good animals, they're not good pets. I need a dog that's going to love me regardless, you know, yada, yada, yada. That's true, because the cat's not going to be like a dog. They're not going to be all hyper and all up in your face 24/7. It's kind of backwards, actually. You need to show your cat affection in order for you to maybe get affection back from your cat. And so that's not to say that every cat is going to be disaffectionate or overly affectionate, because I think my cat Emmey, she's super affectionate to me. I am her favorite human, and we're going to talk about cat favoritism later on in this video. So stay tuned, watch to the very end so that way you know a little bit more about cats. So a little bit of backstory about my cat Emmey is that I picked her up, I adopted her when she was teeny tiny, probably about the size of my hand. And I don't have any pictures or videos of her when she was that age. She was 7 weeks at the time. And if you skip forward 12 years, Emmey and myself have one of the best human and cat relationships that I've ever seen. And so obviously I'm tooting my horn a little bit because I love my cats and she loves me. But at the same time, cats can make really good companions. And so if you're thinking about getting a cat, you have to know that you have to manage your expectations, because I love Emmey, but sometimes she just doesn't want anything to do with me. She'll just be like, psh, whatever, I'll see you next time whenever it's time for me to eat. And then I won't see her for the rest of the day. So again, manage your expectations. So now that you have a little bit of backstory about my cat Emmey and our quote-unquote loving relationship, so let's talk about the first thing that I feel is going to be the most important thing about your cat. And overall, that's going to be health and diets. So health and diet for a cat, much like anything else in life, are closely intertwined. So naturally, just like a human or just like any other creature, your cat is gonna have to eat. And so when you're thinking about feeding your cat, you have to make sure that your cat is getting the most amount of nutrients. And so serving size is going to be subjective to the size of your cat, to the weight of your cat. However, for the general consensus, for about an 8-pound cat, which is the size for Emmey, it's about 5 to 5.5 ounces of food every day. So let's break down the food into two different categories. We have category 1, which is wet food, and then category 2, which is dry food. So wet food is arguably going to be the better choice. There are some pros and cons to feeding your cat wet food versus dry food 100% of the time, but you definitely want to make sure that regardless of the pro or the con, that you're keeping your cat's health and their diet in your first priority list. Let's go over some of the pros for feeding your cat wet food. So the first of many pros is going to be the fact that wet food is actually going to be just more wholly nutritious for your cat. It's going to be closer to what they eat in the wild versus the kibbles that they would receive inside your house. And so because the wet food is more closer to their diet in the wild, it's actually going to be a double-edged sword, and I mean that in a good way. So when you feed your cat wet food, you're not only going to be feeding them physical food, but you're also going to essentially be feeding them water as well. Because the way the cat's metabolism works is that when they eat, let's say, a mouse or a rat in the wild, they get their liquid nutrients from that creature. So you're essentially going to be imitating that for your cat when you feed them. And so because the wet food is both physical and liquid nutrients, you're keeping your cat healthy in terms of their hydration. Cats notoriously have kidney issues or they have renal issues, and if you feed them exclusively dry food, you may run into those situations as your cat ages. Some cons about feeding your cat wet food is that it's just more expensive. These cat food manufacturing companies know this. They know that cat owners or pet owners in general want to keep their animal, their cat, healthy, and thereby they will go buy them more expensive food, which is going to be the wet food. So that is probably the first and main con that you're going to be thinking about when you are purchasing wet food for your cat. Another con for wet food for your cat is the fact that your cat can be picky. Think of it like this. Kibbles and dry food is like potato chips. I love potato chips. It's probably my kryptonite. However, it's just not healthy. No matter how good they are, it doesn't matter how crunchy they are, how satiating it is to have that potato chip in my mouth and chewing and eating it, it's not good for me. And the same thing is true for your cat. And whenever you give your cat dry food and kibble, you're essentially giving them a bowl of potato chips and you're expecting them to eat that over and over again. Whereas on the flip side, if you give your cat wet food, sure, you're gonna get more wholesome nutrients and more just hydration value out of it. But one of the things that you need to be wary of is the fact that cats are notorious for being picky. So you may buy some wet food from your local grocery store and then serve it up on a plate and you're all excited to give your cat this food. And then it comes time for them to eat this food and they don't. And so in those situations, you kind of have to just trick your cat into eating it. You have to play around with it, kind of like you're spoon feeding a baby, or maybe chop it up a little bit or dice it up or mush it up. I don't know, but I do know that sometimes cats can be pretty picky when it comes down to having the correct wet food. Whenever you do find the correct wet food, boy oh boy, it's like a feast over and over again and they will let you know. Another thing that you have to consider when you're buying wet food and feeding your cat wet food is the fact that it's going to spoil. Think of wet food to be like a canned perishable for humans. So if you are getting canned wet food for your cat, it's eventually going to spoil, and it's going to spoil quicker than you think. You don't want to feed your cat spoiled food because it's been sitting at room temperature for the last few hours. So if your cat doesn't eat that food because they're picky or whatever, then you may actually have just wasted money, wasted food on that wet food, and then you're gonna have to replenish it with fresh food, hoping that your cat's gonna eat that. If you are using dry cat food, it's not going to spoil as quickly. It's, again, kind of like a potato chip. You can open a bag of potato chips and then kind of just leave it out. Sure, it might get stale, but it's not going to spoil as fast as if you're going to leave a plate of steak out. You know what I mean? So you just want to make sure that if you're using wet food or dry food, of the duration of how long that wet food has been sitting out at room temperature, which could cause bacteria in the cat food and then ultimately make your cat sick, which is a big no-no. So now let's talk about kibbles and dry food for cats. And so the first pro I could say about dry food for cats is that it's just more economically sound. Back a few years ago when younger Derek had younger Emmey, she ate mostly dry food because it's what I could afford. And so again, not the most healthiest thing for Emmey, but it's what I could afford and it's what I could get her. And so if you are in a more economical, distressed point of life, cat food that's dry might be your only option for now. But once you are in a more financially stable situation, I highly recommend that you are going to get some wet food and start giving that to your cat immediately, just for the longevity of your cat's health and their lifespan. So in regards to cat health and dry food, is cats that have mainly dry food as their main diet are actually prone to having more renal or kidney related health issues as they get older. And so that is a very scary situation to be in because of the fact that a lot of the times when a cat starts to develop kidney issues or renal issues, it's almost irreversible unless you start to change up your cat's lifestyle and their food intake pretty rapidly. So yes, while dry food is more economical, it's easier, it's also not good for your cat. And so I'm not gonna judge you if you feed your cat dry food. Hey, do what you wanna do. I'm just saying that dry food is a little less nutritional than wet food. You want to invest into a cat or pet fountain, which is going to spew out fresh water from a filter, so that way your cat can go over to that. Otherwise, if your cat doesn't have a water fountain or a drinking bowl, they're going to get dehydrated. And again, that's just going to lead down this roller coaster of other health issues for your cat. And to prevent that, again, just try to keep your cat as hydrated as possible. So when you have a healthy cat, your cat's going to know that, and they're going to show that to you in probably one of the most interesting ways, and that's going to be grooming themselves. They're pretty much animals that are self-cleaning. So when your cat is happy, when your cat is healthy, they're going to be cleaning themselves pretty regularly. And that leads me to my next point, because they're always going to be cleaning themselves, which equates to them swallowing hair, which equates to hairballs. Fortunately for this video, I'm not going to show you what Emmy's hairballs look like, but she does have a good amount of hairballs to share around the house, which is unpleasant, but you know, at the same time, when you have all that bile inside of your stomach, we as humans try to expel that through throwing it up or using the restroom. Same thing for cats. They have all of that hair bile stuck in their stomach, and they just have to get rid of it. So a lot of times when your cat's not feeling well and they have a hairball, you're typically going to see it in their behavior. And most of the time, once you hear them hacking out that hairball, their behavior is most of the time going to return to normal. And I do want to put a disclaimer there, is that if your cat looks unhealthy, or maybe they're not acting the same, they're coughing, or they have labored breathing or whatever it is, do not hesitate. Take your cat to the vet as soon as possible, because that could be a medical emergency. So I don't know about all cats. I think most of the cats, I know specifically for Emmey, she likes to be on a schedule. She gets into a pattern. She likes to wake me up at 0 dark 30. She likes to eat at a certain time, if not all the time. And just staying on schedule is going to actually help you and your cat to develop a more in-depth relationship. You're going to be more in tune with your cat's behavior, their personalities, and just their general well-being. And so that leads me to my next concept, and that's going to be litter boxes. So no one really likes to talk about litter boxes. I mean, honestly, who would? I dread doing Emmy's litter box. I just think about, how can something so cute poop that thing out in the litter box? And so I hate doing litter box chores. However, I do it daily because of the fact that that's what the cats need. So depending on your household, if you have 3 cats, then you should have 3 litter boxes plus 1. If you have 5 cats, you should have 5 litter boxes plus 1. So ultimately, at the end of the day, you want 1 extra litter box for the amount of cats that you have. And so I'm definitely no mathematician, and I'm not gonna do math for you because I'll fail with flying colors. However, you just wanna make sure that your cat has options. So when you're placing a cat's litter box around the house, you typically think that the cat wants to have their litter box put in a place that's secure and dark and hidden away, because that's how cats are. They're pretty aloof animals. But in actuality, at least for Emmy's sake, she likes to have her litter box in just convenient areas. So I have 2 litter boxes. I have 1 cat, so 2 litter boxes, and I have 1 upstairs and 1 downstairs. And so she's typically just going to go to the litter box that's closest to her. Don't torture your kitty by having the litter box in the garage, whereas your bedroom is on the 2nd floor of your house. So along with regular maintenance of scooping litter on a daily basis, you definitely want to make sure you're using the cat litter that your cat likes. And so this can be a little bit of trial and error. It took me about 1.5 years to really figure out what Emmey likes for her litter. However, once you find that litter that your cat likes, then I would suggest just sticking with it. So there are multiple brands out there that cats are going to be able to use. You have scented, unscented, clumping, lightweight, clay, sand, pellets, and it really depends on what you want, what you can afford, but more importantly, what does your cat want and what they will use, so that way they don't poop in the corner of your house, they'll poop in the litter box instead. So a unfortunate fact about cats, and if you don't clean their litter box regularly, is the fact that if you are giving your cat a dirty place to use the bathroom, they're not going to use it, plain and simple. It's kind of like when we go to a restroom and it just looks awful inside. We're like, nah, I'll wait. Same thing for cats. They're going to be like, no, my litter box is dirty, so I'm not going to use it. And then they're going to go somewhere else. And then that's going to start building the bad habit of your cat using the restroom outside of the litter box. And if your cat refuses to use the litter box, then that also may lead to other health complications like a UTI or other medical issues, because again, cats are picky, they're very particular. So making sure that you're tending to your cat's litter box needs is going to be another thing that you want to think of when you're trying to get a cat and maintain your cat's health. And so if you're like me and you just dread doing litter, I hate doing it, but at the same time, it's a necessary thing. And so if you do not, or you just cannot stand doing litter box duty, then there are options out there. You are able to have kind of like spinny litter boxes, and you pretty much sift out the soiled litter and keep the fresher litter out into a separate container. And then you have automatic litter boxes, which come in all shapes and sizes. So if you are going to be using an automated litter box, make sure you're buying from a reputable brand and making sure that you can, one, afford it, and two, afford the type of litter that it's going to need, because most automated litter boxes have a special type of litter or pellet that you have to use in order for that to be effective. So your cat is a hunter. In their mind, they think that they are just the biggest, baddest little lion that's just prowling around your house. And in some senses, they're not wrong. But you have to keep your cat entertained. That imagination of theirs, their ability to think this and hunt that and stalk you and stalk that, that's just their instinct. So there are so many ways to keep your cat entertained. There are stringy toys, there are laser pointers, there are floppy fishes, there are cat puzzles for cat treats. I mean, the list kind of just goes on and on and on. The things that I use to keep Emmey entertained is going to be a mixture of everything I just listed. So Emmey's favorite toy is actually going to be a stringer toy with kind of like a fuzzy, fluffy thing at the very back of it, and she likes to chase that thing around. Emmey also likes to chase the infamous red laser dot. And so whenever it's dark out, I'll turn out all of the lights in the house, and then I'll play with the laser pointer, and she can go ahead and try and chase that laser pointer to her little heart's content. Whenever I'm busy or I'm not feeling well or I'm just not in the mood to play with Emmey, there are more self-driven entertainment for the cat. So you can put some treats in a puzzle container, and she's going to go ahead and try to figure out how to get those treats out of the puzzle container. And then there are things like YouTube, where you could look up on YouTube games for cats to play on YouTube. And then on YouTube, you're able to have that video playing in the background, which Emmey loves. And it's actually really cute because Emmey, she'll actually look at the TV looking at the birds, or she'll be looking at the laser pointer on the TV. So when you're at home and you see something like this, it means that your cat is bringing you a gift. This pretty much is just saying that your cat is giving you some type of affection, and it's an act of service in their eyes. And their service is they've caught something, quote unquote. Emmey caught her toy, and she's bringing it to me as a gift. So that way, whenever I see this gift or this toy, you definitely want to make sure that you are rewarding her in some way. It doesn't necessarily have to be a treat or food. It could actually be something along the lines of just petting or rewarding her with happy tones, because of the fact that, again, she's bringing you a gift. So if you have an indoor cat, The cats are typically going to bring you their toys and just their favorite item, and they're typically going to leave that at your doorstep, outside of your bedroom door. If you're in the toilet, they'll typically leave that toy just outside the bathroom door. And again, that's just a means of the cat giving affection to you. Now, this can pose as a potential tripping hazard. So if you're waking up in the morning, just make sure you know where exactly you're stepping, because you don't want to step on your toy and potentially fall. So a lot of people tend to wonder, how do I know what kind of toy my cat will like? And so the answer is actually going to be a little bit more surprising, because if your cat likes fuzzy little creature type things, then you want to get one of those small little toys that have like little legs on it. And you want to use that as a means to drag it and kind of whisk it around the floor. Whereas if your cat has an affinity more towards feather toys, you're gonna wanna make sure you're stimulating your cat with that feather toy and kind of flinging it across the air in circular motions, because that's going to make your cat feel like they're hunting a bird. So there are two major toys. You have the crawling type toys where you drag that on the floor, and then you have the feather type toys, which it depends on your cat. Emmey likes both, honestly, and so she just really knows how to keep herself entertained. So on the flip side of things is, if you have an indoor-outdoor cat, or maybe you are on a farm and you have a whole bunch of outdoor cats, you're typically going to receive gifts in the form of dead rats or mice or birds or creatures that your cat has caught when they hunted, and they're bringing it back to you as a means of reward or as a means of a sign of affection. But what happens if you just don't want to spend money on cat toys? Because I get it, cat toys can be pretty expensive. And in that situation, a good old string or rope from, let's say, a discarded hoodie, or maybe just some string from something, as long as it's not poisonous or sharp or something that could potentially hurt your cat, they actually love just kind of stringy type material, and then that will usually prompt them to go ahead and play with you. So I've had 3 cats in my life. One has passed away, the other one I had to give up because I was moving, and then obviously Emmey. And I think I know my way around cats. And if you want to be your cat's favorite person, like I said earlier in the video, cats are very, very particular, and they will have favoritism. So if you want to be your cat's favorite person, what you have to do is give them treats, feed them, and play with them. Engaging with your cat is going to make them enjoy you more. They're going to enjoy your presence. They're going to see you as a person that's going to just make life happier. Cats are going to be just like us. They are going to gravitate to the person who is fun, who is going to feed them, who is going to play around with them. And I mean, that's how you gain their favor. So now this next segment is going to be talking about more about behavior. So let's talk about the first one that is most infamously tied down to cats, and that's going to be meowing. Meowing can mean a plethora of things to a cat. Most of the time, a cat is going to meow to get our attention. So in nature, at least per National Geographic, cats don't actually meow to communicate with other cats. So a wild cat's not going to meow to communicate with another wild cat. They may meow for aggression purposes, for intimidation and whatnot, but just in regular communication, the cat isn't going to meow and the other cat's not gonna meow back. They're gonna have body language. If your cat is meowing at you, they're wanting your attention. That could be because they want food, they want your attention to play around, maybe they're in pain. So the more that you get to know your cat, the more you're gonna understand what type of meowing your cat's gonna have. In some more unfortunate situations, if your cat is in pain or maybe they're fearful of something, the meowing will be more exacerbated. They're going to be sounding much more distressed versus the regular cutesy meow. So again, just pay attention to your cat or the cat so that way you know what's going on. And if you feel it's ever an emergency, take your cat to the vet. They're going to know what exactly is going on. So another cat behavior that we need to pay attention to is purring. For the most part, purring shows signs of comfort and contentment and happiness. However, in some rare situations, if your cat is in pain, their purring can be, again, exacerbated, and then that could indicate that your cat is having a medical emergency or your cat's in pain or whatever. So staying in tune with your cat is actually going to help you identify, is it a painful purr or is it going to be a good comforted purr? And we're all aiming for our cats to have that good comforting purr. So in regards to purring, it's actually funny because purring again shows comfort and just relaxation with the cat. However, cats purring actually have health benefits to us humans. And it's kind of crazy because something so small to us actually helps us with reducing stress. Their purring helps us reduce our blood pressure levels. Their purring can promote health or heal infections. And so next time you're at home and your cat's trying to purr on your lap or purr on your chest, or maybe they're rubbing up against you and they're trying to purr, just remember that they're not just one, showing affection, but two, they may be healing you of something too. So another trait that I had forgotten to mention about cat behavior is going to be cat kneading. So this is going to be when cats are on a soft place, so maybe like a blanket or your stomach, and essentially the cat is going to knead on you. And so this is a sign of comfort because of the fact that it's going to be something that reminds them of when they would knead on their moms for milk when they were a kitten. So this kneading is a sign of affection. So if your cat chooses to knead on you or near you or on your head or wherever, that is just like one of the most honorable things you could ever receive as a cat owner. It's essentially saying, hey, I trust you. Let me go ahead and love on you so I can use you as a pillow. Now let's talk about the tail. So I would say most cat species have a tail. It's pretty iconic for a cat. And so cats will not be the same as a dog. So cats' tails are going to be a little bit more different from dogs. And this isn't to throw shame at dogs. I love dogs, but dogs are going to wiggle and waggle that tail like it's a nunchuck. However, cats are going to be a little bit more determined in what they're trying to do with their tail. So if your cat is quickly swiping their tail from left to right, that means they're agitated, annoyed, or potentially upset. So if you don't want to get bitten or clawed by your cat, highly recommend you just kind of give your cat some space. Don't ask me how I know. If your cat is stationary, maybe they're sitting down and their tail is just resting, but only the tip of their tail is moving, that indicates pleasant feelings. That indicates that they're happy, they're content, they're comfortable. Another cat tail behavior that you don't want to see is when the cat's tail is between their legs. That typically means they're in fear, they're in pain, or they're in distress. And so we don't want our cats to be in any of those three categories. So if you see that your cat has that type of situation with their tail, that's a red flag. You want to pay attention to your cat, making sure that if they need medical emergency or medical help, you get them to that veterinarian office as fast as possible. And one of the cutest things you'll ever see in a cat, and you see this quite often in movies or TV shows, is when a cat is approaching you and their tail is sticking straight up, but at the very tip of their tail, it's curved over to the left or to the right ever so slightly. That means that they're excited to see you. They're happy to see you. You're typically going to see this cat tail behavior whenever you return home and your cat's trying to come to you at your front door. Definitely just know that whenever you see your cat's tail up and it's bent over at the tip just ever so slightly to the left or the right, that means they're happy. So you're doing a good job. When your cat is happy and their tail is symbolizing that, you're often going to see this. And so that can mean two things. That can mean that your cat is falling asleep, which happens, or it means that they're saying, I love you. And so Emmey will sit at my feet or on my lap or on the couch or somewhere arm's length away that I can't touch her. And she'll just sit there and blink at me over and over again. And I love it because it's super cute. But in order to show that affection back, you simply do it back to her. So you look at her and you slowly blink too. And it's just a means to show her that, or him, that you love them back. Another way to keep your cat happy is to provide places for your cat to stretch those claws and scratch. I know cats don't understand us when we don't like it when they scratch our furniture or our legs or our belongings, because they think they're just doing normal things, whereas they're damaging our property, right? And so in order to kind of stop that behavior, it's not 100%, but in order to stop your cat from scratching around your furniture or around the house as much, is to have multiple cat scratching posts with different type of cat scratching posts posted around your house. So I think Emmey has probably 1 or 2 cardboard scratching posts, and then she has 1 or 2 cat tower scratching posts that she uses to keep those claws sharp and also relieving them when they are using those scratching posts. So we don't want to encourage the cats to scratch up our furniture, and so again, just try to make sure that you have those scratching posts posted around your house to encourage them to use that instead of your couch. Another funky cat trait that I think all cats got the memo on is showing their butt to you. So it doesn't matter if you are sitting on the couch, it doesn't matter if you're on a Zoom call, a FaceTime call, or whatever you're doing. If your cat has the potential to get eye level with you in some way, shape, or form, you can bet your bottom dollar that they're gonna turn around and lift up that tail and be like, yo, look at my butt. I don't know why cats do that. If you do know, leave a comment below, because I truly, just at a behavioral standpoint, don't understand it. So if your cat does do that, you just have to kind of gently push them away. So cat butts have become such a trend in today's day and age, where there are memes about cat butts, there are videos and GIFs about cat butts, there are puns, and there are even coloring books about cat butts. So if you're thinking about getting your friend or your family member a gift and they're a cat lover, it might benefit you to go ahead and go to one of those stores and get a cat butt coloring book. And so if you've made it to this part of the video, I want to say, hey, I appreciate you. You have stuck with me throughout this video, and hopefully you're a little bit more knowledgeable on cats, at least with my experience with Emmey. And so now we've got to the know before you go tips. So tip number 1 for things that you should not do for your cat is have any type of lily plants in your house. Any type of lily plants or flower in or outside of your house is 100% toxic to your cat. If they get any of the pollen on them, if they eat it, if they are around it, it is almost 100% deadly to your cat. So make sure that you're not getting any lilies or any of their variants around your cat. Know before you go tip number 2 is going to be making sure that your cat is only eating what they're supposed to be eating, which is going to be cat food. Don't let your cat eat the dog food. Don't let your cat eat your food. Don't let your cat be around scheduled drugs or recreational drugs or OTC drugs. Again, only let your cat eat what they're supposed to be doing, because their metabolism is different than ours. So something that may be painless and harmless to us could be deadly to them. Know before you go tip number 3 is chemicals. Making sure that your cat isn't around chemicals that are going to be harmful to them. Your cat is going to be walking around your floors, and if you're using chemicals that's harmful to them, like I said earlier in the video, if your cat is going to be cleaning themselves and they're cleaning their paw that has harmful chemicals on it, that is ultimately going to make your cat sick, and again, you don't want to be in that situation. So make sure when you are using chemicals, you are using chemicals that are pet friendly and they're not going to make your cat sick. Tip number 4 is going to be making sure that your cat has a place to climb. You don't necessarily have to build the Eiffel Tower in your living room. You essentially just have to have maybe a cat condo that's going to be just a little bit taller than the couch or a cabinet, and allowing your cat to stand on that particular cabinet or furniture, so that way they can be like Cat Batman and peer over your living room, or just have a higher view of seeing things. That's just who cats are. They love it. That's instinctual to them. So if you add that cabinet or that cat condo, your cat is most likely going to be using it, and you'll get a little bit of a kick out of it because they'll enjoy it too. And so know before you go tip number 5 is going to be the fact that you want to give your cat a place to call their own. Even though they are little lions and they're going to claim your house as their own, they're actually going to claim you as their property. You actually want to give your cat their own spot. Like I said in tip number 4, give them a cat condo or maybe their own little bed or whatever, and they're gonna love it because that's going to be what they're gonna recognize as their spot. So if you made it to this part of the video, I want to thank you as always. You guys paying attention to me and hanging out with me as I talk about random things on Know Before You Go really means a lot to me. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for just spending a few minutes out of your day so that way you can learn about cats or roller coasters or SeaWorld or whatever it is. And so if you are interested in my content, I highly ask that you leave a like, subscribe, and a comment below so that way my videos can reach the deep dark corners of the YouTube algorithm. Subscribing to my channel doesn't cost you a thing, and if you're wanting to stay up to date with all the content that I'm producing, go ahead and hit that bell notification at the top there so that way you're able to see when I post the next video. All right, that's a wrap for today's video. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.